you probably see yourself younger and thinner. Most people do. You'll see yourself younger and thinner, maybe a little more attractive, but it's still you. You can identify you. If you showed that to someone else, they would say it was you. If I drew a picture of myself as a child and showed it to someone and compared it to a picture of what I really looked like, you would not think it was the same person. But if I took a picture of myself that I drew as a child and presented to myself now, they would be closer aligned. And so that was the point. That was the whole point, was to make my body and brain match. We tried first for years to get my brain to match with therapy and talking and all these different techniques. We couldn't get it to work, right? We tried all sorts of different techniques. We tried meditation. We tried go out for sports, be super manly, right? Like we tried stuff like that. Didn't work. We tried like hypnosis therapy. Didn't work. Like we tried all sorts of stuff.
Now, what do you think? This is what
we landed on. Yeah.
Why do you think that the activist wanted to remove transsexualism or transgenderism as a mental disorder, mental illness, however you call it? Why do you think they wanted to remove that from the DSM-5 or the DSM-4, whichever one it was?
DSM-5?
Yeah.
I wish I knew the answer. I really don't know. I think there's a financial profit motive behind it, because with it being a mental health issue, you have to go through a mental health gatekeeper. If you remove that mental health stigma, you can open the gateway to things like informed consent, where you can just come in, say, I understand, and then walk out with the pills, and you don't have to go through all the gatekeeping. And it allows you to buy. Yeah, I think that allows you to open up things like gender clinics, because you start looking at the removal of the changing of the DSM-5. Yeah. And you start seeing an upswing in the social contagion, because it coincides with the end of the same-sex marriage debate. It coincides with the rise of TikTok. It coincides with the shift in financial priorities for these LGBT groups, from gay rights to trans, as they're trying to stay relevant. So this 2013 to 2015 period, you had a lot of kind of very powerful people trying to stay powerful and relevant in a changing environment. And you had this perfect cocktail. And I think some of that is really at play that stirred that in. And with the 2016 election of like Trump and the fear and those type of things, I think that all kind of feeds into it too.
Pays their pockets too. Just more money for more drama, for more medicalization, for more money.
Yeah, but what are they actually fighting for now? Like, what are the trans activists fighting for now? What rights don't they have that they're fighting for?
No.
That's a good question, right?
So what the TRAs are fighting for, or they are most vocal about, is, they say they want women's sports. They're like, oh, we belong in women's sports. We belong in women's spaces. So they basically are these TRAs, which are transgender rights activists, not transsexual rights activists. Right. So I always make that perfectly clear.
There's a distinct difference. Right. Yeah.
So they're talking about things like, we want to compete in athletics. Okay, well, no one's stopping you from competing against the men, but they want to compete against the women, because a lot of this is, well, it's allowed because Kate McKinnon came out. She was a cyclist, trans cyclist, came out on, I believe it was The Late Show with, I can't remember his name.
Trevor Noah?
I don't watch Trevor Noah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I remember that.
I stopped watching it after.
I had to too. I had to too, and I used to watch them all the time.
But she came out and was like, well, I'm biological and I'm a woman, so trans women are women. And then all of a sudden that just took off. So trans women are women after that. And so by that logic, that took off, became a slogan. And so then women's spaces, women's sports, women's prisons. And so they're trying, it almost seems like they're trying to erase women because there's a lot of misogyny in the transgender movement. But the transsexual movement, the things that we were fighting for was things like, hey, we're trying to blend in. We are here by invitation only, right? I talk on my channel about like, there was one lady I worked with who was uncomfortable with me using the restroom because we didn't have a third space. I use third spaces when applicable. Otherwise, I use ladies' restrooms because that's my presentation and it's where I feel comfortable. And I've never, with the exception of this one person, I've never had anyone tell me they felt uncomfortable. Right. She told me she did. I started using a bathroom on a different floor of the building. I didn't want to make her uncomfortable. All right. Anyone tells me they're uncomfortable, that's fine. I'm there by invitation. That's how I view it. Right. I'm in their spaces. I would never compete again in women's sports. Intramural, maybe. Mixed league. Absolutely. I wouldn't play men's sports. I'd get the crap beat out of me. But like, I wouldn't go against women. That's not my lane. I stay in my lane. And that's the thing that these new generation, and there is a generational divide, I think, too. Yeah. They don't stay in their lane and they don't have what we used to have, which was, we used to call them drag mothers or trans mothers or something that would teach us the ropes. We used to have someone that'd say, no, we don't do this. No, you are a cross-dresser. You are not trans. Medication transition was the last resort because it impacted more than just you. So if you had mild dysphoria, we tried to keep you from transitioning because it was harmful to your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your kids or your job and all of these other things. But in terms of rights, we were looking for update your driver's license, update your lease so you didn't get fired. I transitioned, you couldn't update your paperwork, so you couldn't get jobs, you couldn't get housing. So those were things we were fighting with. We were fighting against gay panic defenses for if you had sex with someone, right? Yeah. You have sex, they could sit there and say, oh, gay panic, I beat the ever-loving snot out of you. And, I've gotten calls at 2-3 o'clock in the morning to come pick someone up from the hospital because their jaw is shattered from having an encounter with a gentleman who just had sex with them, was perfectly fine, and then just beat the snot out of them. And then they would press charges and the cops wouldn't even listen to them because gay panic. Yeah. So these are the things that we were fighting for. And gay panic is still a thing. But you don't hear the TRAs talk about that because it's not something that they care about. They just want to displace women, and that's disgusting and disgraceful. And that's not anything that any transsexual wants any part of. Right.
Absolutely. I was going to say that brings us to the question that you wrote down. What was it? Why do you think that, especially in today's community, trans women are usually at the hierarchy? They're usually the ones yelling the loudest and, demanding the most. Why do you think that is? I mean, we always assume it's because they're more masculine still within themselves, and that's why that carries over.
It's more dominant.
Misogyny and male privilege. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. No, yeah, like legitimate, like not even like the left says to throw things around, but legitimate misogyny. Yeah.
It really is. So when I transitioned, my mom at first took her a long time to come to terms with it. And then she sat there, and when she finally came around to it, she said, okay, you're not the most masculine person, but we are going to unlearn everything. And I'm going to teach you to be a feminist. Okay. You're not going to rely on a man to do anything. You're going to do everything yourself. Anything a man can do, you can do better. You're not going to let, and all of these things. And it was second wave feminism, not third wave. So it was very much like that type of feminism is what my mom taught me. And that's peppered my life. So when I go into a space, I'm the, I'm the I sit there, I've got my hands in my lap, I take up as little space as possible, I raise my hand even if everyone else is shouting. Like, I'm that person. I'm very
Right.
I'm that person. But if I have to, I can still channel that little bit of loud. I can get in your face. I don't want to. That's not who I am, but it's still in there.
I think every woman has that naturally anyways. We all can get a little feisty and defend, mother bear nature when it comes out. But most of the time we are very to ourselves, smaller spaces. But there's definitely still that grr in women also. That's something I think that is lost in today is like you can have masculine and feminine traits and still be feminine overall or still be masculine overall. You don't have to only be one. It's completely normal, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a very anti-woman, it's a very anti-women movement. If you're telling women that they have to, sleep with you because, genital preferences, like that's a thing. Like, respect those are the only pronouns that I'll accept. Like,
lesbians getting kicked off dating apps for saying they want biological women, that kind of thing.
I mean, my first video was the giggle versus tickle. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Legislating women out of existence in Australia.
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
I called my mom and I cried because I was just like, if they can legislate women out of existence, they can legislate me out of existence. They can legislate anything out of existence, and that's not what I want. I always saw myself as like, I'm a trans woman. Women's rights are my rights because society sees me as a woman. I want to pass as a woman. I want to operate as a woman. So I gave up male privilege as soon as I said I was transsexual.
Right. A lot of these APPs have not, like in these transgender women, biological males, they just, it just seems like they want to push push women around. It almost seems like they hate women,
Yeah.
That's misogyny for you. It's by the way, I know it took a while for your mom to come around, but it's sweet of her to reteach you everything from the perspective of a female, because I'm sure that could help a lot of trans women out, especially these days, just to learn like, okay, I was raised as a man. Maybe I should consider what it would have been like to be a female so I can step out of that male privilege and actually see what women think like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you always say, what does it mean to think like a woman? And I think that's a perfect example of it there.
Well, the fear of being raped.
Yeah,
that's a big thing for women. I
would say for trans women too, with larger and more aggressive men.
Right, but with trans women, they have more of a fighting chance to fight a man than a biological woman does to fight a man.
Yeah, but it's still dangerous, I'd say.
It is.
I'm sure you have an opinion.
I'm that woman that walks around with her keys between her fingers.
Yep.
I'm that gal. I'm the gal that's like got the little squeezy flashlight on her keyring and checks the back seat of her truck before she gets in.
Always.
Like I'm that person. So yeah. Yeah, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm 200 pounds. I've lost a bunch of weight. So I'm in between. I'm in between outfits. So
Congrats.
One of the things they don't tell you about surgery is that when you get it, you have to change your eating habits. You end up putting on a lot of weight because you are essentially neutering yourself. So the same amount of calories. So I went from about 190 to almost 300 pounds over the last couple years. And
Damn.
so in the past year, I've gone from 300 down to almost 200, and I'm trying to get back down. So
Congratulations.
I haven't repurchased all of my clothes yet. So, but I could defend myself, but it's still scary. And you know,
now
you have to take care. Yeah.
What's your opinion on queer?
I hate that word.
I hate it too. Why do you hate it?
So it's funny. I was just talking about this morning. So that was one of those words in the playground. Queer, the F word, that's 6 letters, not 4. The sea-sucker word. Those 3 in particular were words that I used to get called a lot and got beat up over. And the amount of times that I had teeth knocked loose, my nose busted, my eyes blackened, ribs busted, just beaten up over that word. To me, I hear that word and it just fills me with like, I want to just double down, and I feel like I'm about to get punched.
Yeah.
And now to just see people just throw it around so casually, it's like it strikes me weird. But I understand that words change and people reclaim them over time. But that's what I'm having a hard time adjusting to, because it was a trauma word for me.
Well, yeah, it never was a positive word before, and now because a few teeny boppers want to use the word to identify the whole community, it's what we're all labeled as.
It seems like it's more straight people that are identifying as queer, honestly.
It's just crazy to me.
Spicy straights wanting that LGBT protection, because get those special protection points, because you don't have to do anything to be queer. You just say it.
So
I'm queer. I'm protected.
On that note, what do you think about non-binary people?
I think they're just androgynous people from way back in the day. They just, again, they found an opportunity to get stuck under an umbrella, and as soon as you keep adding more letters to the LGBT, more people you keep adding people to it to get protection, more people want to get under it, and suddenly everyone's LGBTQIA whatever, and everyone's protected, and then it has no meaning. So you've watered it down.
Yes, and you might as well dissolve it into regular old human rights, because it's the same thing at this point. You're not anything different than anyone else in the letters.
But it's such stolen valor.
Yes. It's
absolutely such stolen valor. It really pisses me off. Because like the shit that like I went through as a kid, that you went through as a kid, that you went through, all that shit just for someone to be like, hey, I identify as this and now I am this, and you didn't go through any of the struggles. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was funny too. I had someone tell me the other day that I didn't understand what it was like to be transgender and the struggle, and I went off. I did. I was like, let me flip this around on you. When was the last time that you had to tell someone that they had HIV or AIDS because they had unprotected sex? When was the last time that you had to tell it, had a trans woman who was in the hospital whose face had gotten rearranged because, she had slept with the wrong guy? When was the last time that, you had, someone that you had to basically bail out of jail for trying to use the bathroom at a bar, and all they were doing was trying to use a bathroom? Like, these are things, right? When was the last time you lost your job for being trans? When was the last time you lost your house? These are things that I've been through. These are things that I've experienced with other trans people. And to sit there and say that I don't understand or I don't know what it's like, I'm just like, it boggles my mind. It's
such
22 years in the community.
They feel like they're entitled.
It's just keyboard warriors. It's like the same people that would sit there and be like, The people that start talking about like what the military should do when they've never served a day in their life, it's like, well, I played 74 hours of Call of Duty, so I'm a military expert. I'm like,
So they would know.
Yeah, that's the same concept to me, but it's so annoying. It's like the guys that mansplain what it's like to be a lesbian to you guys.
Oh,
I'm sure you love that.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's great. Now they're just identifying as women, and now they're on our dating apps.
Yeah, we can't say anything against them, but it's
No, and the ones who are supporting it the most are women, which just boggles my mind. I still can't get an answer why women support it so much, aside from just being the empathetic, nurturing type of people that we were born as, unfortunately.
Yes, but you don't have to be this ignorant with so many things, I guess, is where...
Right.
I guess where do you think the line has to be drawn here? I don't think we should add any more people to the LGBT alphabet, but like what needs to be safeguarded and at this point to go further than what we have so far?
If I can ever get monetized, I'll be like super happy. So I was super excited. I was like, man, I hit 200 subscribers yesterday. I was like, whoa. We look at each other every once in a while and we go, remember when we had three subscribers and I was one of them? Nope. I came into this. I was like, all right, the first thing I'm doing is I'm gonna talk from the heart because I'm gonna be as authentic as possible.
We appreciate that. Absolutely.
And then I'm gonna try and connect with as many different people as possible.
For sure.
So like I connected with you guys. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm not typically in your guys' space, but I love your content. And I'm like,
thank you.
I think we're on the same page with stuff. So I'm like, and I know I'm not like, cis lesbian. I hate the word cis, but I didn't know how else to phrase that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I'm like, okay, I feel like you guys just seem super chill. So like if we were in the same city, I'm like, yeah, I totally would hang out with you guys.
Thank you.
I reached out to like, oh yeah. As soon as I'm done, I'm getting paid. I was pretty that. I reached out to Buck Angel, so he's gonna have me on his podcast at some point.
That's nice. Buck's really nice.
Buck is great.
Good person.
I met Blair when she was in DC. So
how was that?
Oh, it was so fun. It was other than the weather being absolute crap and my hair getting like super frizzy because it was just pouring down rain.
Yeah.
It was like a 2.5 hour drive for me because of like weather and detours and stuff. But she told me to email her. And so she agreed we'll do a collab at some point, which I think will be amazing if it happens.
Hell yeah.
So.
We got Blair to comment on one of our videos and we almost had a heart attack collectively.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I think that's so people like to call us TERFs, but I don't think we're exclusionary. We definitely have opinions about the transgender debate these days. But as far as like transsexuals, we find that we agree a lot more with them than anyone else, just because if you're going through that entire process, you must truly feel that way. Whereas the transgender. Where transgender is just really this label people like to smack on themselves, even if they're non-binary and have done nothing to themselves besides get a haircut. And that was one of those irritating. And exes, God. Don't get me started.
Jeffrey Marsh.
But yeah, people seem to like want some social credit from it. And that seems to be one of the most irritating things, especially for me as a lesbian. I'm sure for you as a trans woman, it has to be so irritating to see the people who obviously want clout just for being different when you obviously can't help the way that you are, just like we can't help the fact that we're attracted to women. And I don't care if someone calls that a mental disorder or a mental default, because it might be. I'm not wired to be straight, but I'm still wired to be this way. It doesn't make me any worse off than anyone else, but it's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem. I come right out of my videos. I say I'm biologically male. I say it. I have no problem. It's so funny. People are like, "You're a dude," and I'm like, "Thanks." I thumbs up the comment. I'm like,
Right.
I'm like, I said it in the video like 4 times. I was like, okay,
Good ears,
cool.
bud. Good ears.
Because most people, the most of those like transgenders, trans women, I should say, are the ones who get the most upset about it. The ones who identify as transgender, trans women, just get so angry about it. And why?
They're living an illusion. They're living an illusion. So what they're happening.
Yeah.
So most transsexuals they're reality based. What a transsexual is doing is they understand that they have a mental illness. I have a mental illness. I'm upfront about it. Mm-hmm. I have a mental illness. My mental illness has a picture in my head. We talked about it.
Yeah.
I'm upfront about it. Okay. And I align. I'm here by invitation. I love women. I respect women. I want to pass as much as possible. But, I also I did the whole super girly hair, makeup, nails, all that stuff. I did that in my 20s. Mm-hmm. I got to my 30s. I was like, now now I'm 45. I'm like, you know what? I like jeans, t-shirt, hoodie.
Yes,
which most girls do anyways.
Sweatpants,
right?
That's where I'm at.
Absolutely, athleisure is a real thing.
Right, but you have. It's real easy to sort of tell when you're in the community who's who and who's what, because you'll have the HSTS. The HSTS, you'll be able to see them, and they're going to doll up. They're always going to doll up.
HSTS?
The homosexual.
Homosexual transsexuals.
The gay men that transition into women.
So,
okay. Yes.
So they're the ones that are always going to look super feminine.
Yes.
They're usually the super gay boys you would know when you were in school. Probably you came off were very feminine.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Blair White.
Yes, very much.
Samantha Lux. Alexis Blake, right? Those 3 right there, those are the 3 I can think of right off the top, right? They are all super pretty. They're all, you look at them, you're like, very, very feminine. They're always made up. They pass well, right? Then you'll have your... Blanchard would call them AGP because they like women, and AGP then has the negative connotation because, and I wish there were better terms for this inside the community but we can't talk about it because AGP is tarnished because they call it pseudoscience because it's wrong. But the theory actually, when you start looking into it, is very correct. But there is a divide. So just because you are autogynephilic, meaning that you are someone who is attracted to women, doesn't mean that you're a crossdresser or transvestite or one of those creepy people. However, if you are a crossdresser or a transvestite, you are one of those autogynephilics who has one of the 4 subcategories of attraction and persuasion. So you're going to be attracted to women's clothing. You're going to be attracted to women's body parts. Yeah. You're going to be attracted to women's bodily functions. Or you're going to be attracted to doing things as a woman.
It comes off as very fetishy, like you're fetishizing women, and that really, I think, turns my stomach.
I think with the attraction to clothing and stuff, it's not necessarily as sexual. It's more like a desire for women's clothing.
See, for me, I always thought it came off as very sexual. Like they're very sexualized.
Well, I think that's because you see a lot of sexual AGPs out there.
True.
So it is kind of it is a paraphilia, so it is a sexual desire, but it can be a low-level sexual desire. So you can think of it kind of like you see a cute girl, she's got a cute swimsuit on, right? The cute swimsuit, you could be like, okay, that swimsuit looks really cute, and it looks really cute on her, and it could give you a little bit of that kind of tingle that you're kind of turned on a little, and you don't know if it's the clothing or the girl, but you're the suit is cute. Okay. So you could be low level like that, But then you could also be like euphoria boner because you just picked up a pair of underwear.
Right. And I think that's
Which are two different types of AGPs.
that's where a lot of the
And
turfs,
it's a whole scale.
you know,
it's a whole scale.
Which
And
is
then
really
there's 4 sliders that you can have. So when you have the guys that are like, I want to pump breast milk and breastfeed my babies, like that.
Yeah, I can't.
Or the Jessica Yaniv who
can't.
wants to teach a girl how to use a tampon.
I can't even.
Yeah.
Right. So that is very, very much the automatic. And then you have the fetishistic type, and that would be like the cross-dresser guys, the guys that just like put no effort in, they just put on a wig and some women's clothes. So
you've also seen AGPs that are good, like the one on Peter Boghossian that we saw. I forget.
Yeah, those are very. I used to watch Taxi Cab Confessions back in the day. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Okay.
Yeah.
But I used to see these guys who were married who would go out at night dressed as women because it was something that they enjoyed doing, and I never had a problem with that because he was staying in his lane. And everyone was cool with it, and he wasn't bothering anybody. That was fine. But somewhere along the way, it just blew up into something totally different, where it's just pushing women aside,
And that's where I think it started around the 2013 to 2015 kind of period, because we used to in the transsexual community, we used to be like, okay, you like to cross dress. You're not trans.
right.
And today it's, oh, you close your eyes and you get turned on thinking of yourself as a girl. Oh, you're trans. You need to be on HRT right now.
Yeah.
Oh, you looked at sissy hypno porn and you liked it. You're trans. And like this is what's happening on Reddit. And there's this whole culture of like people being pushed into this, and they call it egg culture, where you are kind of pushed in until you announce that you're trans. And when you're trans, you become this woman, and there goes, you now have large zygotes because you're a woman, and your egg has cracked. You're now a woman because trans women are women.
I'm going to look that up. Egg culture. I've never heard of that before. But that's fascinating.
Well, so that brings me to another thing that I've seen on Reddit that I was kind of curious about. So I'm sure that you've been misgendered, and I'm sure based on just talking to you, you weren't bothered by it. But I've found that there's a specific group of people on Reddit that desire being misgendered. And I don't know if maybe you have any insight on that, or if you know why people are doing that kind of thing, but it's always confused me, because you think that the whole point of transitioning is to pass, like we've said, but these people intentionally want to be told and corrected against what they believe they want to do.
Like Lily Tino?
Or it's definitely on Reddit like crazy, where they're like, misgender me, please.
Jesus.
So part of it is there's this, I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, I'm trans, what are you going to do about it? Us versus them. I want to ram this down the heteronormative culture throat kind of attitude that's kind of just pervasive through the transgender community. It's a very big us versus them, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it's so pervasive, but you can go through, you can look on Reddit. Tumblr was big on it too back in the day. And it'd be like, misgender me, I dare you. And a lot of the same people that are like, misgender me, I want you to, because I want to get in your face. I want to tell you you're wrong, because then I can have a story. I can get on TikTok. I can monetize
Finally, someone did what I wanted, so now I'm pathetic and I can get some pity points.
I can have this little bit of power in my life for a moment. It's kind of like a new variation of the F-TERFs movement.
Yes.
I understand.
That's true. We should probably wrap it up here before the camera overheats.
Oh, yes,
I'm
'cause our
surprised it's
camera,
gone this long.
Yeah, tell us your channel and where to find you on socials and stuff so that people can find you.
Sure. So my channel is Skyvidarity, and I'm on X as Skyvidarity, and that's about as social as I get.
Absolutely.